Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is? Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And for those of you who like these type of videos, please remember to click like down below. For those of you who aren't subscribed yet, please click that subscribe button. But on to the point, I had a number of people link me a video by Jeff Nippard. And obviously I'm going to be critical of this because I do not like the leg extension. And I'm going to address some points made there. And he basically made a video endorsing the leg extension, discussing different things with it. And ironically, some of what he said in it kind of highlights my own points about it. And it had to do with the bad form and everything. But up front, one of the things that he said is, look, we could use this to isolate the quads. And a lot of you guys have been saying lately, yeah, my quads have come back up a lot. They're like, your back was your best body part. Now your quads might be. I don't do leg extensions. I'm not even interested in leg extensions. I don't think they're a good idea. And I'll discuss with you guys what I do and what I prescribe for my clients. But I want people to remember also, this is not a bodybuilding channel. I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't like bodybuilding. To me, quads are necessary because you need big quads to squat 500 pounds, to squat 600 pounds. You need quads to be able to sprint powerfully. Right? We need big jacked quads top to bottom, and I'm talking all the way from the hip all the way down to quads that hang over your knee joint. If you want to be a powerful athlete. So yes, I care about maximum quad development. Nothing to do with bodybuilding purposes. But that hasn't prevented me from having quads that are like bodybuilders. So, over to the point. It says, well, we do this to isolate the quads. Why would you ever want to isolate the quads? It's not normal, it's not natural, it's not useful. Not saying we can't do stuff to make sure that we emphasize certain parts of the quad, but isolation is completely undesirable, unnatural, and it'll interfere with your overall recovery. And if you want proof of the fact that your quads aren't even meant to be isolated, he pointed out all the different form problems of the way people naturally cheat, and you have to force yourself not to cheat on the leg extension. That's because it's not normal, it's not natural. And in fact, trying to even take an athlete and teach them how to isolate the quad on something like this, you're doing your athlete a disservice. You're making them bad at movement patterns. You're forcing them to do something that's unnatural that reduces force production and one of the most important muscles for force production, and that is the quad. You're training them to be a bad athlete. I don't care what you're training for, what your goals are, doing stuff that intentionally makes you a bad athlete, not a good idea. And I believe in a big quad focus. He also pointed out the injury thing. This is where people disagree. And I'm sorry, let's come over and he takes Brad Schoenfeld. With all due respect to Jeff and to Brad, Brad's not an athlete. He doesn't coach athletes. He's not a strong guy. He's not a jacked guy. I'm not particularly interested in his viewpoint on injuries when we're talking about shear stress and recovery of the knee joint. Yes, there is shear put on the knee at the top. When we have really, really high output athletes, we have to be thinking about these forces because they're going to limit our recovery and our ability to do other exercises. It matters. It absolutely matters. Matters a lot. So if you're doing an exercise like that, trying to grow a lagging muscle to where you're taking one of the functions out, the actual movement of the hip, and just trying to focus on extending the knee, we are taking part of the quad out. And we're doing so at the expense of extra shear on a critical joint that is going to cause more inflammation and it's going to reduce your training loads for the week. And you guys might not notice this if you're a 300-pound squatter, but when you get strong, this is going to be a problem. So let's come over to the issue, though. If his concern is, well, we're trying to work those lower heads of the quad because the upper heads get worked a lot. That's true. The upper head gets worked a lot on our big movements, right? That whole upper section gets worked a lot. The reason people have a lagging lower quad is usually not squatting deep enough. Not squatting deep enough, excessive reliance on knee wraps, things like that. That's usually what creates your first imbalance. But if we're going to look at other exercises besides just squatting for quad development, we have better options than the leg extension. Because what are we looking at? What do we need? Why are guys not developing enough lower quads. Usually they're not getting enough tension at the lower point, the point where your knee is bent down to 90 degrees or deeper into that deep bend. They're getting insufficient stimulus. Well, leg extension still gives the same problem. Still gives the same problem. It's generally harder when you're focusing on a peak contraction at the top. It's that deep stretch position that really works those heads the most. And even when we look at EMGs, the different quad heads, the deeper you go into the squat, the more and more the lower parts of the quad get worked. What I would suggest, start with things like, what do you guys see me do? What do I build my quads with? Almost exclusively these days outside of my squatting, because I do an enormous amount of box squatting and sumo deadlifting. I do a lot of it. Right? Hopefully no one's going to deny that. I do a lot of it. A lot of both. Not my only quad work. I do large amounts of one-legged step-ups onto a high box. Why? Because they put me into that deep stretch position. It replicates on each leg independently, so I can do it unilaterally. What happens? Put it into a deep stretch position. I'm having to lift my whole body weight. When I do it for metabolic conditioning, it's just my body weight, and it's like very high rep sets. But even for my normal work sets, I'll do 5 sets of 10 with a barbell on my back. So like even these days, I do 70 pounds while weighing 220. I step up onto a 20-inch box for sets of 10, alternating legs. Puts you into that deep squat position, and I'm having to lift out of the bottom almost 300 pounds off of that one leg from a deep squat position. Yeah, it lights my entire lower quad up. It lights it up. And we have the added benefit of it using the entire muscle. The most tension on the muscle is being put at the bottom. But the entire muscle and movement pattern is getting worked, just so it will carry over because both joints are being worked. Through a relatively full range of motion with a lot of tension and a lot of volume. If we talk about ease of recovery, because people will say, well, we can't just squat, we'll run into axial loading issues. That's true. So in this case, we balance out unilateral imbalances because we start with the weak leg, equal reps, and sometimes at the end I throw in that last extra rep for my weaker leg on the last set. But we're having reduced axial loading because, quite frankly, if you're a 500 plus pound squatter like me, 70 pounds on your back is nothing. But on your quad, your body weight plus 70 pounds is a lot. And we get better movement pattern carryover here. We get maximized quad hypertrophy. We get a nice little conditioning response. And we get good unilateral balance. In fact, even the leg extension doesn't even help with that. And we don't get quite the same shear. Right? This is easy to recover from. You can handle very high volumes of this exercise. I do because I do it on a lot of my off days on camera for you guys, for conditioning, for metabolic conditioning. All right, where else do we build our quads? What about our plyo work? If you're a serious athlete, and this is where we talk about bodybuilders being lazy. Bodybuilders are lazy. They're lazy pieces of crap in the gym. And that's just a fact. Let's come over. If you're an athlete, I don't care if an athlete's an athlete. I don't care if you're a power lifter. I don't care if you're a basketball player. I don't care if you're a football player. We're probably doing plyometrics, jumping, doing box jumps. Standard for athletes. Think about the quad activation in there. Again, we're getting upper threshold fibers on every jump. You're going to get a lot of extra quad development from your jumping. In fact, that'll handle most of your calf development too. All right, your plyometrics. So what do we have so far? Big, heavy power movements, right? Our big exercises are going to hit the quads. Then we can do specialization for weak point training, so one-legged exercises. That's just what I do with the step-ups, and I think it's a great version. It's my preferred version. It's what I prescribe for clients. We have our plyometrics. For most people, you can get really jacked quads already off of this. This is enough to get your quads jacked. But that's not it. Again, if you're an athlete, what else are you doing? Let's step away from this silly bodybuilding stuff. And I'm addressing this from this perspective, not from the bodybuilding perspective, because I think bodybuilding is insane. And this is exactly my point. Jumping on a leg extension machine. Build your quads with work. Let's come with the other point. Metabolic conditioning or general physical preparedness can address your quads. In my case, I do the step-ups because I don't have a sled, I don't have a prowler. I don't have any of that stuff. So I use what I have. Do step-ups for volume. What about your other things? Again, if quads are lagging, a very high priority for you in your conditioning work because you're all doing conditioning work. If you're not doing conditioning work, don't tell me that you're an athlete. That includes you bodybuilders. You guys aren't athletes. You're pretty useless. So, metabolic conditioning, sled drags, prowler pushes. We can do extremely high workloads that are going to be very quad dominant with no eccentric loading. It's easy to recover from. Therefore, we can do very large volumes of it without soreness and things that are going to always interfere with our squatting. Right? That's your final component. That is your final component. There's your 4 keys to building massive, powerful quads without worrying about silly crap like isolating. Your big, heavy work. Your unilateral deep exercises that work the quad through the full range of motion, right? Our plyometric work, our metabolic conditioning work. You should be able to easily push your quads to their maximum recoverable volume and build enormous amounts of work capacity and power doing that. And if you do those things, your quads are by default going to get massive. Right? This leg extension nonsense is just that. It's nonsense. It's going to train you. It's going to teach you to be a bad athlete if you're not careful. It just puts shear on the knee, and it doesn't even work the entire quad. Right? It only involves one function of the quadricep. There are 2 functions. There's 2 joints involved. This is ludicrous. This is one of the most worthless exercises ever invented. Alright guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.